So the 8th chapter, titled Akshara Brahma Yoga. Akshara means the imperishable. Kshara is perishable. Akshara is imperishable. Yoga, the yoga of the imperishable Brahman. The chapter has got 28 verses. It's divided into 4 topics. The first topic, Brahman and the world, you gain what you pursue. It's quite satisfying to know when he says you either seek the world or Brahman, you gain what you get. It's a question of seeking it. So whether we seek God or whether we seek the world, he's only saying you get what you seek. You gain what you pursue. Verses 1 to 7. 8 to 14, it talks about through ever steadfast yoga and meditation, you reach Brahman. Avarostanda, is it coming there on the screen for you? Huh? There. I'm there. But the PPT is not coming there. Okay. And I think we are still struggling to integrate all the systems. It should be coming soon. So through ever steadfast yoga and meditation, you reach Brahman. Verses 8 to 14. And 15 to 22, the third topic, Brahman is beyond the manifest and the unmanifest world. 15 to 22. And the last topic, the fourth topic, the paths of return and non-return. Very interesting, the paths of return and non-return. Those who path of return and non-return. Audio is clearer. Am I speaking through the microphone or is it speaking through my normal? Speaker is coming, Ada? Okay, right. So here in the fourth topic, he talks about the path of return, means those who go through the spiritual journey, they exhaust their merits because of the meritorious deeds they perform, punya, whatever you perform. But there he says that you only go through a certain heavenly experiences. And having exhausted them, you come back to the cycle of birth and death. That he says the path of return. The path of non-return, those who do not return, is the cycle of birth and death. They are not confined to the cycle of birth and death, so they exhaust their punyas, they exhaust their vasanas, and they merge to realization. So it's so interesting how he puts it, how clearly he puts it as the path of return, the path of no return. That in the end of the chapter we'll see that. But the first 2 verses, actually, Arjuna is asking a question. That's when we realize that the Gita is a dialogue. A dialogue is the best way to communicate this wisdom. A question and answer. So Arjuna asks a question in the first 2 verses to the terms which he heard Lord Krishna was speaking in the 7th chapter. At the end of the 7th chapter, there are some terms. I'll get to that. So he's asking, it's like, let's say, you heard me yesterday saying something and you come to the classroom, sir, you said something yesterday. Can you please explain what that means? So there's a continuity between the end of the 7th chapter and the continuity of the 8th chapter. So those of you coming for the 8th chapter will understand what these terms are. But just for the benefit of doubt, I'm mentioning, these terms were used by Krishna in the 7th chapter. So Arjuna doesn't understand. Hey, what is this you're saying? I don't understand. Can you please explain? A simple conversation dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna. Okay, so let's start with the first two verses. We'll chant the first two verses, and let's chant together. So try to follow the rhythm. The sheets are there if you can take. Okay. Arjuna uvacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adhidaivam kimuchyate adhiyajñam katham kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayanakale cha katham jñeyosi niyatatmabhihi. Again, Arjuna uvacha kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adhidaivam kimuchyate adhiyajñam katham kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayanakale cha katham jñeyosi niyatatmabhihi. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna said, what did he say? What is that Brahman? First question. Simple, straightforward. Kim tad Brahma. What is Brahman? Kim adhyatma. What is adhyatma? Adhyatma means the inner self. The second question. Kim karma. What is karma? What is action? The third question. O Purusha Uttama. Look at how Arjuna is addressing Krishna. Uttama means you're the best. Purusha means men. I have never known of any better person than you're Uttama. You're the best amongst all humans. Purusha Uttama. You're the topmost. So look at the love with which he has towards his friend or a teacher. So there's that utmost regard and respect. So what is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma or Purushottama? What is declared to be Adibhuta? Adibhuta, above elements. What is it above elements? What is termed as Adidaiva? Above gods. And in the second verse, who and how is Adiyajna? Adiyajna above sacrifice. Here in this body of Madhusudana, and how are you to be known? Prayana kale chakatham. Prayana kale. Prayana kale. What prayanam are you doing? And Pushpama, what prayanam are we doing? Journey of life. Here he says at the point of death, prayana kale, at the time of death, how are you to be known? By whom? Niyatatmabhihi. A man who has self-control. As I said, there's two verses, they're only questions being asked. What is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adibhuta? What is Adidaiva? What is Adiyajna? And again he asks at the end of it, how are you to be known at the time of death? Now, death is not the death of the physical body. It is the death of the ego. So we are not certainly soundproof. Are the windows any chance open? No. Thanks, Gayatri. So, Harish, you got the questions? Can you say something, Harish? We want to see whether our system is working. Can Harish be unmuted? Not happening. First time we're going on hybrid, you see. We're just trying to rack our head with how this will come, that will there, this will be. Sanjay, we need your expertise here, Sanjay.
Hariom Guruji, can you hear me
There's
now?
a lot of technology around us, but we need to figure it out. There's a lot of divorce happening. We need to marry them. Huh? Is it happening, Gayatri Ma? Can you speak, Harish?
Yes, Guruji, can you hear me now?
Can't hear you.
Now can you hear me, Guruji?
Oh my God. Okay. There's some issue with the speakers today. Sorry, Harish. Looks like we can't hear you. You're able to hear me, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Harish, can you please speak now?
Guruji, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if I mute there, then we can't hear. It's muted. I'm sorry, today it looks like it will be a one-way communication, at least with you all on Zoom. Okay? Sorry, Harish, for that. So, what is Brahman? Adhyatma means the Atman. Karma means action. Adhibhuta refers to Prakriti, refers to perishable matter. Adidaiva refers to the jiva, the indweller, the experiencer. Adiyajna refers to the presiding deity, the pure consciousness. So these are terms. Now we'll explain what they are. And the death of the ego, how are you to be known at the time of death? Death obviously not refers to the physical death. It is the death of the ego. Because you don't know, you can't reach the self when you die physically. Because every human being goes through the cycle of birth and death, every being goes through. But the attainment to the self happens when the ego dies, not the physical body dies. So the death of the subtle and the causal body. Subtle body क्या होता है? Subtle body is the mind and intellect. We carry that. So the mind and intellect is the subtle body, and the causal body is the vasanas. So when the subtle and causal body die, that is when you would know the self. That's when you become one with the self. So he's asking, how am I to be known? How are you to be known at the time of death? So death implies the subtle and causal. Anyway, this is just a question. Let's see what the Lord says. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavodhyatma Muchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaraha Shri Bhagavanuvacha Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaraha Visarga Karma Sangitaha. The Blessed Lord said, Brahman is the imperishable, the supreme. His own being is called Adhyatma, the inner self. The creative force that causes the birth of beings is called karma, action. So first he says, Brahman, he answers the question, what is Brahman? Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Brahman is the supreme, is the imperishable. Now we will only understand the term imperishable only with reference to perishable. It's only with reference to the perishable matter we'll understand that which is imperishable. We do not understand what imperishable is. Because all our life, all our experiences are related to perishable. Can you tell me, other than Brahman, which doesn't perish? Just try and relate to. All through your life, all the experiences you have are all perishable in nature. Kshara. Kshara in Sanskrit is perishable. So we only understand the imperishable with reference to the perishable. So we do not understand what that imperishable is. Tell me anything in your experience which is imperishable. Anything. There's nothing that we can relate to. The problem is we don't think in these lines, isn't it? But is it possible to find something which is imperishable in life? It's changing, sir. It's not the same. It's constantly changing. Sorry? It's also going through change. It's not static, no? So it's matter. When you say all is only matter, isn't it? Matter is subject to change, isn't it? The particles go to change. In that extreme heat of the sun, the particles are going through dynamic change. If you put any object in a furnace, what happens? In heat, everything is going through change, isn't it? So undeniably, the change is happening. It's so further away, it seems to be imperishable, but it's actually perishable. It seems to be changes, but actually it's changing. So we can't understand what that imperishable is. It's very difficult to attune to. Where's the microphone? Not working? If you speak, then perhaps we can hear through microphone. So it was very comfortable. No, akade kuchundi. I would have just gone to the center, put on a computer and spoke. Samsara you're going to.
I agree.
Hybrid.
Thank you. No, I was remembering when I was learning Sanskrit. So in Sanskrit Vyakarana, he says, the teacher says that there is nothing like present tense. Because there is no present tense. By the time you complete the sentence, it is already past tense. Because things have changed. There is nothing which is constant from 1 second to the other second, because everything has changed in 1 second.
So in Sanskrit, there's nothing is present tense.
That's what I mean, in terms of Vyakarana, he says it is a Mimamsa. It is something which happens as a discussion between Sanskrit Pandits, that there is nothing like a present tense. There is either past or future.
This is what they say, that when we are talking, as we are coming to the end, it already it's a past.
It's past.
All spheres. Imperishable idea is
One the same, the God or soul in the text, he calls it as Brahman. That's the only thing that is imperishable.
But the real Pandits or the authorities, they discuss this, whether there is anything called present continuous. It's continuously change. Even we are undergoing a change. Every second, the cells are undergoing a change in the body. That's what.
Nothing is imperishable except the self. No, but the thing is, we don't understand it. We are not able to attune to the spirit of the message here. The question is bland. The answer seems to be very bland because none of us are able to relate to that frequency. Not able to relate. Otherwise, hair should stand and oh my God, what is Brahman? He says, Aksharam Brahma Paramam. So it is pure feeling. You got to feel that frequency, what the Guru or the text is talking from. We're not able to, sadly. So it's not all about how much you understand. The problem is we're not able to feel it. It's like there's no love between two people. They have lost love for each other. There was a love, and now there's no much love or understanding or identification between each other. There's a gap, isn't it? I understand who you are, you understand who I am, but I have no feeling for you. It's exactly that way. Intellectually, we both understand what perishable is, what imperishable is, but yet we are not able to connect or feel what that imperishable element is, isn't it? So the bhavana is missing. We don't have the, what's the right word for bhavana? Bhavana is to have that inner subtle emotion, inner connect. That's not that. If you have that, perhaps in one of the most invigorating messages, one of the most delightful ideas, that Brahman is the imperishable. And it's the imperishable that supports the perishable. It's unmanifest that supports the manifest. Behind the perishable, there is imperishable. If there is no imperishable, the entire perishable has no existence. It supports it, isn't it? Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Swabhavo Dhyatma Muchyate. Uchyate is called, is said. What is said? His own being is called Adhyatma. Its Svabhava, its nature. The nature of Brahman, Brahman is imperishable, its nature, his own nature is Svabhava. Now remember in the 7th chapter, those of you who were there will recall, we said, if the sun above is Brahman, if the sun above is Brahman, the rays of the sun is its own nature, isn't it? The sun has nothing to do with, it doesn't have to do much for the rays to express, isn't it? The sheer existence of the sun, there's bound to be the rays and the lustre, isn't it? It is the very nature of the sun to emanate rays. If Brahman is imperishable, the swabhava, the nature of Brahman is adhyatma, atma. He says it is his own being, it is his own nature. So the Brahman and Atman are related to each other. How are they related to each other? Just like the sun and its rays are related to each other. It is its own swabhava. It is its own nature. The creative force that causes the birth of beings is called karma. Bhuta bhavodbhavakaraha. Sarga karma sanjitaha. The creative force of beings. Again, it's very poetic. Don't take it literally. Atman emanates as the living beings, as the human beings. आशमा तो कुछ समझ में आ रहा है, मुझे भी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. I don't know, something बोल रहे हैं. हाँ? You can understand it this way. There is let's say there is a painter. A painter or an artist. Within the painter, there is the urge in him to paint. So when the painter identifies with the urge to paint, there is the creation of the painting. Am I right, sir? There is the painter, there is the urge that is within him, and there is the union between the painter and the urge, he ends up painting. It's not just because you're a painter, all the time you're painting. You don't do that, isn't it? There's an urge within you, you identify with the urge, and then there's a creation of a painting. The same goes to an artist, a musician. There's a musician, and then he has the urge for music. So when the musician identifies with the urge or the desire to sing, he sings. Now, how do you understand it this way here? Atman emanates as human beings, he's saying. So if the human beings are the creation, if the artwork is the creation, what are the two things that existed or required for the artwork? The urge and the creator. The artist and the artistic urge creates the art. Isn't it? Three things. There is the artist, the urge, where there is a union of the artist and the urge, and there's a creation. Applies to any examples as we've taken. Now, with reference to, he says, the creative force that causes the birth of beings is called karma. Now, who is the creator? Atman. Okay. Where is the creative urge? Now, where is the creative urge for the artist? It is in him only, isn't it? The artist has the urge within him, isn't it? So if art, no, don't take it literally. Philosophically, we can't take it, but just poetically, he's saying the creative force that causes the birth of beings. So beings are born. There is the Atman. So where is the creative urge? In the Atman only, isn't it? It has to be. If a musician has the urge within the musician, he brings about music. An artist has that urge to create art, he produces an art. Similarly, he is saying the creative urge or the force that causes the birth of beings, the urge is said to have been residing in very Brahman itself. And that is karma. Action. The result of Brahman identifying with his urge, the result is all human beings are born. Chapan sir, Apara garu.
Next is the tattva of the Brahma, which is Atma. Nature. The nature of Brahma is Atma. And Atma requires, in last class, what you said is, Atma requires something to reflect upon. So what it is going to reflect upon to get that, urge or, Ichha Shakti, how does it reflect upon? Because here there are no vasanas when we are talking about Parabrahma or Brahma.
So I will need you to come back to the question again.
Okay. So in the last class, we were discussing about Atma, and if some Atma should reflect upon, for example, on vasanas or on...
What is Atman reflecting on vasanas? That's why I said, can you come back again? Because the concept of Atman reflecting. Oh, I get you. Unless you're referring to the example, we took the sun above as
sun rays,
the sun rays as the nature, Atman, and the reflecting medium,
yes,
which creates the reflections.
Yeah, the medium, in the last class you talked about the medium also.
Correct.
So here there is no medium to reflect upon. That is the question.
So the question is, where is the reflecting medium here?
Yeah.
That's why I
So
said,
that you will get into action.
that's why I said, don't take it literally. It's just a poetic description. It's like saying, what was the cause for the creation of beings? Adam and Eve got together, there was the creation of beings. So where did Adam and Eve came from? They have to be created for the creation to happen further on. Two donkeys came together, there was a series of creation thereafter, a heap of donkeys were born. So where did the first two donkeys come from? That is assumed. Don't ask questions. Could you off your thing? Just press once. You got red light there? So this is not an intellectual theory, but what we explained last week, that's the thing we got to take into account. You're able to follow what was said last week? This is only a poetic description. He's saying the urge and identification with the urge is called as karma. That's all he's saying. Atman is functioning through the individual equipments, that's the individual. Atman is the nature of Brahman. Like rays are the nature of the sun. That's no problem. Atman functioning through the individual equipments is a human being. Now, how this human being is born? He's only poetically saying the very nature of the urge to create resides in Brahman, and Brahman is identified with the urge, therefore the creation has happened. He's just making I would say, a very loose statement here. You and I wouldn't accept it, but we'll just take it in a very poetic way. But what's the fallacy here? What's the fallacy if we say Brahman has identified with the urge to create and that creation is you and me? If you say the urge existed in Brahman, what's the fallacy there? Shamal? He is not imperishable. Okay, you're bringing him down to a level of an ordinary. How can he be imperishable? How can he be above all this? You're bringing God to a level of a mortal. That's why I said it's only a poetic expression, a poetic description. Let's not take it literally. Our understanding of Brahman is Brahman has got nothing to do with the happenings. Brahman is the enlivening factor. Isn't it? Brahman enlivens everything. God has got nothing to do with the happenings here. One of the best descriptions we get is Brahman is a witness. It has got nothing to enlivens it, it's a witness. Isn't it? Okay, sure, sir. I just want to check. Are you all following on Zoom? Harish, are you okay? Sanjay? If there's anything that you wish to say, still there's an echo coming. You want the iPad also to be off? ఇందులో మైక్ లేదు ఇందులో ఇది యా సంజయ్
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me, Sanjay?
Yes, I can hear you.
I want to say something.
Hello. Yes, Guruji, I can hear you. I can. You're not talking right now. Sorry, I'm following the video, but I'll carry on talking just so you can hear my voice. I don't know if you're okay. Now I can't hear you speaking, but I can see you speaking.
Now you can hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. You have to bear with this technology. Rajanji is saying audio is not very good. Is it the same? Audio is good? Harish, how is the audio for you? Audio is not so good. So this is the feedback.
Guruji, can you hear me?
Got the best system possible. This
Guruji,
is
can
the perishable. Correct, sir. Anjuma, you wanted to ask something? See, there is what the
Loud enough.
but when you speak, you can't hear. Still not loud.
All right.
Now what?
So Atman identified with the creative urge. So that creative urge is the part of the Atman, or is it a part of the individual?
Okay, Tinkuma is asking, when the Atman identifies with the creative urge, is the urge the part of the Atman or the individual? Okay. Now, with reference to the verse, with reference to the context, it's just a poetic expression. Now, what the poetic expression says is, the creative urge is within the Atman, and Atman is identifying with the urge for the creation. Now, that's a very superficial, loose statement. But philosophically, if you examine, as we said, if you plant the urge in God, you give desire to God, you bring down God to a level of a mortal. Isn't it? And on the contrary, we say if Brahman is the reality, the entire creation of the world is an illusion. The world which you experience is a product of your own imagination. Like when you go to dream, the dream is your imagination. Yes. See, we are only trying to understand from our perspective. It's not that there is no difference between Brahman and Atman. They are one and the same. Like there is no difference between sun and race. The sun, it doesn't come. In fact, it's best you tell yourself, I didn't attend class today. So you have forgotten what was said. It is just a poetic description. You will have to go back to what we learned. What was said is a human being is born because of his own vasanas. Vasanas is matter. Matter is insatiable. There's no life in matter. What gives life to this dead matter is the consciousness, which we call it as Brahman or Atman. So it is the consciousness, the life-giving principle. It's the consciousness that lends life. So the life-giving principle plus the matter equals human being. Yes. Should I use the board? I'm contemplating to use or not. Huh? But my guru has to come to explain how to use the board. Gayatri Ma, how to use the board, Gayatri Ma? They can see. Yeah. But then you have to, Ravindraji, can you press the button which gets closer to the board? Number 3. Otherwise, every time you have to come. You have to teach me this. Use the white background. What is the question? The PC is the pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is the consciousness is the life-giving force. Please understand, this life-giving force has no life inherent in it. This life-giving force is actually lifeless. That's a staggering part. It gives life, but there is no life inherent in it. So pure consciousness plus matter is insentient. Insentient means there is no life in matter. Now what is matter? Matter constitutes of matter, subtle matter. Gross matter constitutes of subtle matter constitutes of mind and intellect and vasanas. Fatima, just check with them whether they are able to hear me. Just message them and say whether they are all. So, the pure consciousness has no life, but it is a life-giving force. Matter is insentient, means there is no life. Now, the life-giving force plus the dead matter equals or living beings. This is the staggering aspect which we, n number of times you think of it, it's baffling. How is it? Now, just an example to understand this. Take example of petrol or electricity. Now, Vasantama, does electricity have light in it? There is no light inside electricity, isn't it? Similarly, Aparagaru, there is no movement in petrol. Does petrol move? Petrol is motionless, isn't it? You have to drive your car up to the petrol pump, up. There's no movement in petrol, just like there's no light in electricity. Correct? Huh?
They have potential energy.
Potential energy. That's what we're saying. It is a life-giving force.
So it is potential.
But it has no life in it. By itself, there's no life. It has a potential. That's what we're saying. Pure consciousness is a life-giving force. There is no life in it. It has no life. God has no life. There is no life in God. But God lends life. There's a world of difference in the two. If God has life, anything that has life has to go through death. Then you are bringing down God to a level of a mortal. God has no birth and death. Therefore, we say God is lifeless but it's a life-giving principle. This you got to differentiate. So, if electricity and petrol is like the pure consciousness, matter is like take a car or any gadget. You'd say, take a bulb, for example. There is no light inherent in the bulb. There is no light inherent in electricity. But when these two contact, there is amazing. This is the interesting point. Now, Gayatrima, is this saved? Can you save this? I want to use another board. Huh? Where can I go next slide? Press, huh? Just press. Now let's say white better. Take the sun these are the rays reflection 1, reflection 2, reflecting 3. The sun, its rays, and the reflections. The reflections come only where there is a reflecting medium. This reflecting medium vasanas, which is the cause of the individual. For some reason, let's say this first reflecting medium is broken. What would happen to the reflection? No reflection. If the reflecting medium is broken, there will be no reflection. That means there is no life. There is no individual. Individual is dead. Which is exactly as we say, when the vasanas are exhausted, there is no more individual. I die. So the birth of a being happens because of the vasanas. All the vasanas you are born. Now, in entire this reflections, sun got to do with the reflections. Has sun got anything to do with the reflections? It just happens to be there's a reflecting medium, there's a reflection. Sun has got nothing. That's what we say, Atman or God has got nothing to do with the individual or the individual actions you perform. You may perform good deeds, you may perform bad deeds. God has got nothing to do with it. Now go back to it is just the life-giving principle, that's all. Absolutely. But the fact is they exist. The sun exists. We are trying to explain how everything is happening. The reflecting medium is the vasanas. You go back to that's why I said this reflecting medium are your vasanas. So who is Vijaya? Vijaya, okay. if we have to define who you are, if I ask, who is Vijaya? How would you describe who you are? Vijaya is nothing but, yes, the divinity is there within you. Plus, CC, sir. And the highlights are in Ikkada. This is the conditioned consciousness, but God plus vasanas. It manifests as a specific body, a specific mind, a specific intellect. Now, all of this is known as matter. God is said to be the spirit, also known as the pure consciousness. So, Vijaya, who is a Vijaya? An individual. So, an individual is a combination of the spirit plus matter. That's all. All beings, any living being, any being. This is the definition of life. Where there is life, there is bound to be the spirit and matter. Sorry? In inert matter. Other animals, okay. Yes, yes.
So they have means of exhausting their.
Right. Now, what Vasantama is asking for the benefit of those on Zoom, I think they can't hear you. What she's asking is, as a human, I know I'm born and I'm exhausting my vasanas. What about other living creatures? How are they exhausting the vasanas? Just as you're exhausting the vasanas through experience, you go through experience, don't you?
Bad karmas into good karma. I don't know what the definition is. Yeah, okay.
We have said vasanas. Correct spelling, huh? Yeah. Vasanas can either be exhausted. There are two ways of exhausting a vasana. How can a vasana be exhausted, Redigaru? What's the first one? Any vasana can be exhausted either through no, in fact, you're confusing me. Knowledge, action or experience. Action and experience one and the same, isn't it? You can exhaust your vasana either through knowledge or experience. Now, when you say knowledge, it is Whenever we talk of knowledge, it's a conscious process, which is a prerogative only to so you can, as you said, I've come here to experience this. I've sought it, I've chosen it, I have a choice. But exhaust their vasanas only through action, experience. Why is it? Because they cannot put in self-effort. So an animal cannot put in that purushartha or self-effort. So what Providence has given is they will guarantee exhaustion of vasanas they are born with, they will exhaust in the course of their life. It could be vasana to be cunning. A fox has a cunning vasana. A cow has got a charitable vasanas. A tiger has got ferocious vasanas. Through the course of their life, they will exhaust it and burn it and they get rid of it. Nature has given animals one route of exhausting. Humans has got a choice of either exhausting to knowledge or experience. You have a choice. No. They cannot. Animals cannot tap sanchita. A human being not only can exhaust your prarabdha, which is the vasanas you're born with, you can exhaust also the total vasanas, which is your sanchita, and attain moksha realization. That benefit a human being has got. That's the reason we say a human is a far superior creature, a masterpiece of creation. Because we've got the capacity to think and reason and put in that effort, which animal can't do. Yes, sir. Yes, worse than animal. So, not to live up to a level of a human, you need to operate on intellect. So, if you're operating on emotions, animals operate on feelings and emotions. You give a dog a bone, it's happy. You deny a dog a bone, it's unhappy. You can't persuade a dog and say, what is in a bone, man? Just fast, intermittent fasting, and you'll be healthy tomorrow. You can't persuade a dog. I'm going for a holiday or the weekend. Just manage by yourself. Why can't you? Why do you need me? You can't tell your dog, your pet, be self-sufficient over the weekend only. Yes, Saturday, Sunday. I'll come back by end of the weekend. You can't persuade. It's emotional. So it is inhuman to be affected by emotions.
Maybe a mini question, but is this evolution in the order of hierarchy that we're talking about, saying that to be a human being, after human, if I'm a human being today, in the next, if I have life next, would I be again a human being, or because of my vasanas, I could be something else, like a dog or a cat or whatever it is? Or is it like once I am a human being, I will be born as a human being only and not go to
Vasantama, a fundamental question. I wish I got some help from you all from the Zoom floor. Haresh, Vasantama here asking, if I'm born as a human this Janma, next Janma, am I going to be born as a human or something else like a cat, dog, or a lizard? No, but from the sentiment of your question, looks like you're fed up with human birth. I sense that. So looks like you're opting for a little detour from the human chain. And therefore, better watch out what you're asking for. Because law of nature says you get what you have a very clear demand for. So if you are tired, Aparagaru, please take a note. She's tired of human life. So you are, in the Shastras, they say a saying, in fact, in the next 6th and 7th verse, we would have mentioned that. There's the story of a sage who did so much tapas and penance, and he was on the verge of realization. He was meditating so intensely. And he was living in the woods all by himself. And in that quiet, tranquil place, he heard a call of a young fawn, a little deer, in distress. It was struggling in pain and agony, and he could sense that. So he got up from his seat, he went in search of the voice, and he found that young fawn stuck in the bushes of thorns. So he so carefully brought it out, extracted the little fawn from the thorny bush, got it to his kutia because he could heal. So he got the herbal plants and treated it, patched it up, and the fawn had nowhere to go. The fawn lived with the Swami, and the Swami lost his focus of meditation, and he developed attachment to the fawn, and no sooner he died, next Janma he was born as a deer. Next, that's the answer. So you better watch out. What are you entertaining thoughts of? Watch out. What you are entertaining, what thoughts you are entertaining. All these forces are driving your personality. So if there is a very strong desire, which cannot be expressed in a human birth, the chances are you'll be put through a animal birth. But there are many forces acting against it as well. Because as you said in hierarchy, a human evolution is the highest of all evolution. So once you reach this pinnacle of evolution as a human being, very unlikely you will fall back. Unlikely. But if you are very persistent, nature says, okay, you seem to be very dearly wanting a particular embodiment, you will be born as a hippopotamus or a frog. The life of certain frogs, they bury themselves a few feet in the earth, and they only come when it rains and comes, they eat and mate and go back again. So rest of their 11 and a half months, they're buried in the ground. Some frogs are like that, sir. What sort of a life is that? 11 months you're buried in the ground. You only come up to eat and mate and go back again. Extremely tamasic life. So if somebody is leading an extremely tamasic life, no action at all, and everybody is cursing him, everybody is not accepting him what he is, what happens? When that fellow dies, nobody will complain that life. You exhaust your tamasic vasanas, tamasic vasana is exhausted, that janma you'll exhaust, come back to human birth after that. But be careful what you're asking. That's my humble request. Then you'll get it. That moksha from Aparagaru or what? I don't know. Moksha from. Yeah, she said an open-ended statement. She's not saying. So the text says, thinking all okay, vasanas is responsible for your birth. Atman has got nothing to do with it. But even though he says here, the creative force that causes the birth of beings is called karma. But you can also interpret that creative force as the vasanas. When the vasanas unite with the adhyatma, there is humans, isn't it? Correct? Huh? When the creative force, what's the creative force? The vasanas. When the creative force identifies with adhyatma, there is. You reading Alajustunaru? Are you lost? Go back to the first diagram. This is the life-giving force. This is the matter, the vasanas. When the creative force identifies with matter, there is life. So Adhyatma is the Atman. I'm just putting in the language of the text. In context of the third verse, Adhyatma is Atman. Yes, the urge we spoke about is the vasana equals the being, which is life. We are just putting that interpretation into what the verse is saying. The creative force correct, sir? Adhyatma is Atman plus the creative urge is the vasana equals life. In the example, reflect the rays plus the medium equals reflection. Isn't it? Yashima, correct, isn't it? So the rays is the Adhyatma, the sun is the Brahman, the rays is the Adhyatma, plus a mirror, a reflecting medium is reflection life. So, Mako ardham kavatledu. So, please, all of us are confused. Don't worry. Okay, ma?